my friends, and welcome to Making Waves, where ambition meets alignment. My name is Michelle Casaza, aka Mimi the Corporate Mystic, and I'm the founder of Matria, an ecosystem to empower women. As an intuitive coach, I empower women to go from achieving success on paper to creating success that actually feels good by blending strategic excellence with intuitive wisdom. After traditional success led me to depression and burnout, I left my corporate finance job and took up sailing. What was meant to be a 2-month hiatus turned into a bit of a life pivot, and today I combine my lessons from corporate and the sea to empower women to create success that actually feels good. Making Waves is my new podcast where I explore the stories of high-performing women who have undergone their own transformation to create success that actually feels good. Join me today for our very first episode with my dear friend and cousin, Brianna Saba. We recently traveled to Costa Rica together for what we had hoped would be a relaxing, divine feminine retreat, yet the trip was not quite what we expected. We explore the meaning of travel, examine our respective healing journeys, and let you in on a little surprise guest that we had at our very last dinner. In the show notes, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and be sure to like and subscribe to get our next episode. Without further ado, I bring you our very first episode of Making Waves. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Michelle Casaza. I'm an intuitive business and life coach, and I am here today with the lovely Brianna Saba. And we are going to be sharing a lot about a recent trip that we took together to Costa Rica.
Yes.
And I just want to start with like why we're doing this. And this trip was really interesting. So obviously I travel a lot.
Yeah.
I've been to
All the
7
time.
continents. I've done a lot of solo travel. I've done a lot of travel that's very introspective, very reflective, very transformational. But this trip hit different.
Yes, in many ways.
This trip was different. I've never come home from a trip and been like totally unable to answer, like stumped when someone asks me, how was it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't we start there? Brianna, how was Costa Rica?
Wow. Where to begin? Well, Costa Rica this trip started after I had just finished another trip, which was being in Guatemala for a week, which was a whole different trip on its own and wonderful and fulfilling. And it's an amazing country. And we decided to go to Costa Rica kind of in place of another trip that was supposed to happen. And we were really excited to have a really restful, beachy, sunny, kind of relaxing
Surf
trip.
time, surf
Yeah.
yoga moments.
That was our expectations and hopes for the trip.
Yes.
And we were really excited about it.
We were.
And I will still say that I had a good time because I was with you.
Wait, so she still hasn't answered how Costa Rica was. And that's literally how I was stumped because when you talk to people, like I really love creating fun conversations with people. And part of that is the energy you bring. And so if someone says like, how was your vacation? You're like, it was terrible. Like the energy is low. The energy goes low. And so I kind of, depending on the group, like I would just like temper my answer. If I really wanted to get into it with someone, I gave them the whole like, wow, it was a transformational portal. Like it was the growth, the expansion, the challenges, like that was all there. If I want to keep it simple, I just said, it was the first time that I traveled that the weather did not cooperate, which is the truth. So I actually want to start with you just mentioned you were coming from Nicaragua and
Guatemala.
Oh, sorry,
No,
Guatemala. I always,
all good.
I literally was thinking it was Nicaragua this whole time. Coming from Guatemala, we met in our hotel room the first night in, was it San Jose, Costa Rica? And we both arrived late. And it was, I was laying in bed. I had gotten there, I showered, I laid in bed, I was waiting for it was like midnight. And I just want to talk about intuition for a moment because I had a really strong voice that kept coming to me. I don't know if I've told you this part yet. It just kept saying, go home. My intuition was telling me, go home. And so I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for you to arrive. It's like day 0 of the vacation. And I'm like, interesting. And, for I think anyone that's been following my journey or the
Yeah.
Matria journey knows that it's been all about following my intuition
Mhm.
and learning how to do that. And so to have that moment where I'm confronted with that guidance
Yeah.
very clearly, like it was coming through strong. I knew that I was faced with a choice in that moment.
Yeah.
The choice was go home,
Go home.
or stay, knowing
Yeah.
that it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
And there's going to be something that comes up.
Mhm.
And I just remember laying there thinking, the there's a lot in the world of spirituality. It says like put yourself first. Always put yourself first so you can serve others. Like put
Yeah.
yourself first so that you can be the best version of yourself. And in that moment, the idea of going home was putting myself first.
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
And I just thought, that's not right. Like
Yeah.
that's not it for me
Mm.
right now.
Yeah.
Like it was, I can move forward. I can have this experience. I can put myself in this challenging
Mhm.
like moment
Yeah.
to honor the commitment we made to each other
Sure.
to be on this trip together.
Right.
And so that really strong intuition, and the reason why I bring that up is, a lot of times we talk about like choices, right? We have the power of choice.
Mhm.
That was me exerting the power of choice.
Yeah.
And there's no wrong choice, right? Like you can choose to stay, you can choose to go.
Mhm.
You're supported either way.
Yes.
The
Mhm.
universe will support you either way. Now, one choice may have been more aligned
Mhm.
with things that I'm calling into my life, with goals that I have,
Yeah.
with the energy that I'm staying within. And the other choice will also give me what I need to continue to learn and grow
Yeah.
on this journey. And that is exactly what
It's
happened.
exactly what happened.
So,
For
spoiler
sure.
alert, I stayed.
Yes.
I stayed and we had a trip together. And I think the
Mhm.
lesson started really early. So,
Yeah.
what was it like for you arriving from your trip that first night?
I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little tired, of course, as you
Mm-hmm.
are when you travel. I got to the hotel room and I could tell that you were either tired or like you didn't even actually seem tired, but you seemed drained
Yes.
energetically.
Yes.
And I could
Uh-huh.
sense that. So I just tried to be supportive and be light touch. And
Yeah.
you were wonderful, and we chatted a little bit before bed and went to sleep. And I think it was okay. Like it was a very
It was
quick,
okay.
like we
Yeah.
were up for like an hour, I think,
Right.
before going to sleep.
Right.
But yeah,
It was okay. So, just before we
Yeah.
recorded, we were saying like this were the themes we want to talk
Mhm.
about. And one that you brought up, which I'm so happy you did, was how traveling together was such a joy.
Yeah.
And
That was
despite
the best
all of
part.
the challenges
Yeah.
that we had,
Mhm.
it really was. And it was from that moment where I recognized that you recognized that I wasn't in
Yeah.
my best place.
Totally.
That I was like, this is going to be okay. Like
Mhm.
I'm supported.
Yes.
Like I knew that you
Definitely.
had my back,
Mhm.
even if I wasn't showing up, my like bright, cheery, excited,
That's
traveling
okay.
self. And
Mhm.
so I loved that moment
Of
so
course.
much. Um, the lesson started.
Yeah.
The lessons started
The lesson
early.
started. I'm recalling back that moment.
So I want to talk about there's so much to talk about in this trip.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the theme of fear.
Mhm.
Fear came up because in that moment in the hotel room, I was grappling with fear.
Mhm.
And it wasn't my own fear,
Yeah.
it was fear that was put upon me.
Hmm.
So before I
Yeah.
arrived, and this is like, I'm sure this has happened to some of you, maybe, maybe not. You'll have to tell me. My brother called
Yes.
me the 2 days before I left, and he's actually been to Costa Rica.
Mhm.
So the dynamic there is that I've done a lot of travel. When we were young, he always said, "Why would you ever travel? We live in the best place in the world." But what's been really exciting,
Jersey.
yeah, New Jersey.
It's
We love
good,
New
but,
Jersey. We love her.
Yeah, no hate.
But what's been really fun the last few
Mhm.
years is that he has started to travel
Yeah.
for his passion, which is surfing. So he's
Right.
been to Costa Rica. He's been to the town of Saba where we were
Mhm.
going the next day. But he called me beforehand and he said, Michelle, it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Where you're going, two women recently
Mhm.
got macheted to death on the drive. And I was like, oh my God,
This is not what we need to hear.
this is not what we need to hear. And like, if it's truly safety
Right,
concerns,
right.
it's
No,
like,
of
okay, well,
course.
I do need to now consider this. And
Mhm.
so I'm sitting here, my intuition's telling me to go home. I have my younger cousin who's
Yeah.
coming. Spoiler alert, we're cousins.
Yes.
And
We
friends and many
are.
other things.
Mhm.
And I feel a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to let this fear take over my trip, but
Right.
I'm not going to be stupid and disregard the fact that it might be a dangerous drive. So, we did a number of things to actually ensure that we weren't driving into the machete jungle.
Yes, yes. We checked with locals. We spoke with a few locals, the people at the car rental spot, the person at the hotel. Like, everyone assured us it was okay. And I think because we both traveled pretty extensively and on our own as well, we have a sense of knowing, like, when we're really going into danger and when other people's fears or maybe things that they've heard are, I won't say blown out of proportion, but it can get that way sometimes when you travel to a place that's not like, I don't know how to describe. Like,
wherever you go, you have to be careful.
Exactly.
And especially as a woman traveling, you always have your guard up a little higher. And as a solo woman traveling, there's always more, right? So
absolutely,
that goes without saying. So it's not to say we travel without thoughtfulness and safety. That's always top of it.
It's the first layer of defense.
Right. It's like the invisible baggage that every woman carries when she travels. It's the safety concern. So that's always there. But you're right. It's like once we asked a number of people who lived in the area and other travelers that were there with us, and they all said it was fine. I never felt nervous about that drive.
Neither did I.
But and I'm glad we have the video because I can show you, like, I still physically felt the fear. And I'm starting to feel it now just because we're like talking about that.
Yeah.
It's like I felt it like here and I felt it here. And it was like that fear that I just kept thinking, like, oh, this doesn't feel good.
Something doesn't feel right.
Right? Because you actually, I felt constricted. Fear being a constricting emotion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Claustrophobic, small. We like go in. And so I was physically in that space of feeling small. Feeling physically scared. Not actually logically scared, but physically scared. So there was that energy heading into our drive. So the fear and anxiety kind of stayed with me for another few days.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what that shift was, but that then had us on our way to Nosara.
Yes.
So okay, let's get some facts on the table. And then I want to ask you most memorable part of the drive. So 5-hour drive, we rent a car, I drive 4x4. Thank you to my sailing friend Katie for the advice. We needed the 4x4.
Necessary.
All is well, right?
Yeah.
All is well. We stopped for lovely food.
Yes, delicious food. Too much food. Then ate for like 2 days after.
Chicken and rice all week.
So good.
What was your most memorable part of that drive?
Probably the moment that the road turned from paved to totally unpaved dirt road, but not just dirt road with enormous potholes where you literally were getting whiplash from just driving about 5 miles per hour. I mean, I can't even describe it because it was literally like bouncing like this and shaking up everything inside me.
Shaking up our insides.
It was crazy.
Shaking up the insides.
I've never been on a drive like that before. It was truly wild.
I've heard about these roads. So I've heard about how challenging these roads are. But everything was fine. So 4 hours of beautiful paved road. Great. It's cloudy, right? It was cloudy the whole time. It was like
overcast. Like the sun maybe like peeked out a little, but it was pretty overcast
for a moment. But overcast, rainy, but like nice drive. And then all of a sudden, it was like I had to slam on the brakes because no warning, no signs. Crazy. The road was now mud.
Yeah.
With these massive craters. And the jerking. It was like,
I mean, it was like a back and forth. It was crazy.
But in that moment, I learned how to drive a 4x4 through terrain like that.
Like a pro.
Because you have to learn.
You have to learn. Of course.
And I just remember, I should have watched this video before, but I was like, this was at the point where like my hair is in like the craziest fun. And I'm like, I don't know if the bandana was somewhere like, out of necessity.
Just there.
It was like a safety bandana.
Right.
And I'm like basically crying driving.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration because I want to save that. I don't want to exaggerate now because I actually was crying while driving later in the story.
You were not crying.
I was not crying.
You were laughing, but I could feel your pain.
The physical pain.
The physical pain. Actually, I remember you saying that you felt like fatigued or like tight and not relaxed, which neither of us were relaxed.
Unrelaxed. And this goes back to what you're saying about like what we desire for this trip.
Yeah.
Like I desire this
Relaxation.
relaxing beach vacation. And so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, all we have to do is get through this drive. The GPS is like actually quite good. And
Yeah.
it's going down as we're driving slowly. But I'm like, okay, there's an end in sight. And we whiplash our way into town. And then we get back on the pavement. And I'm thinking, okay, we've made it.
We're good. Yeah.
But then we pass by the sign for Nosara.
Yes.
Which is like the big sign that says like you've made it, like here's downtown. And I'm thinking, why are we still driving?
Yep.
Why does the GPS
Why do we have like
15 minutes?
Exactly.
And lo and behold, our Airbnb was a roughly 12, I don't want to exaggerate, 12-minute drive.
12 minutes, yeah.
From center of town, and only 2 minutes of that drive was paved. The rest was actually the worst part.
The worst.
Because it was hilly and extremely unruly.
I mean, craters. Yeah, craters that were filled with water, so you couldn't, because it was raining, so you couldn't actually tell how deep it was. You had to sort of drive on the perimeter if you could, if you could, because they took up the entire road. I can't even downplay how bad the roads were, but
roads were insane.
An active construction. I mean, it really, it's all being constructed on. So it's very much like work in progress, and it's all new development, which, there's a lot to say about that, but it's an interesting.
There is a lot to say about that, but I think it's a good time just to like hone in on like our experience of Costa Rica and Costa Rica as a whole, because we had a very unique experience, and part of that was we went towards the end of rainy season.
Yeah.
And we knew that was taking a chance. There had been no rain for I think 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when we arrived, it rained every single day. And not like that cute, like, oh, it rained for an hour, so we took a nap and then it was fine.
Yeah.
No.
It was full on rain the whole time.
It rained so hard that it would wake me up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like that kind of rain for at least, there were some hours in the morning when it would be okay without rain, but like from noon until 6 a.m. downpours.
Yeah.
6 days straight. So there's that. We stayed, like I said, 12 minutes out of town. Big mistake, in my opinion.
Yes, especially considering how bad the weather was. Of course, nothing we could predict.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah, so being that far meant like we had to drive every day, and it wasn't what we were desiring, right? We wanted surf, yoga, relax, and like for that, we should have stayed right downtown.
Totally.
Outside of rainy season. Yeah. So if you're listening to this or watching this and thinking, should I go to Costa Rica or like, is this, we're not telling you not to go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica,
you should definitely go.
Is so interesting. So beautiful.
So beautiful. The people are so nice.
People are wonderful.
The best people.
Really nice.
No machetes. Well,
no machetes.
Machetes, but only to cut mangoes and coconuts, which is what you want the machetes for.
Yes.
And to bushwhack, I guess, through the jungle. But yeah, the people were amazing. The flora and fauna was
so lush.
Stunning. We saw monkeys. We saw
so lush.
Yeah. Reptiles. Like all of the things were amazing, besides the weather and the challenges that really
the universe brought to us. The universe served us. We got served. So, so the last thing I want to talk about from that drive was actually, in that moment when I was like, we were like laughing. We were laughing, but also like, what is happening? Like, where's are we? Where's the beach? Why are the roads like this? And I just remember being like, there's a lesson here.
Yeah.
There's a lesson here.
They keep saying there's a lesson here. And I'm like, I don't care about the lesson.
I was like, we don't know what the lesson is. It will present itself to us. And so I love when you came home. I think it was our shared album that you titled Costa Rica Taught Us Something. And it's true. And like, we'll kind of debrief what we learned on this trip before this podcast is over. But yeah, it definitely taught us something. And for me in that moment, having that mindset of like, there's a lesson here helped keep it light.
Totally.
Helped keep it light, because my other choice was go into the fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, my intuition said go home.
Yeah.
It's raining. The roads are bad. My brother said there's machetes around. Like I could have gone down that route,
Sure.
and like I don't know what would have happened. And so in that moment, I thought, the universe is teaching us something, and we're here
Absolutely.
for a reason, and we're going to learn something from this moment.
And I think you probably didn't go cross that threshold into the fear because there was a commitment made to me in a way
Yeah.
to be there, and maybe the energy that I brought, or
Yes,
the way that we were feeding off each other, I think is a better way to say that.
absolutely.
Kept us both in decent spirits,
Yes.
like enough to have us stay there and want to experience what Nosara was going to have to offer us.
Yeah, we knew there was something.
There was something,
And there
and
was.
there was,
And there absolutely was.
Yeah.
So, so I'm feeling called to shift into the fear. The fear, well, we've kind of been talking about that a lot,
Yeah.
but like, how that really materialized for me at
Mhm.
least, and then how we shifted out of it.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm going to sneeze. No, we're good. Okay.
You can always,
So yeah, you can not sneeze by saying either
I know, always.
So okay, so now we're here, we're in Nosara. It's probably like day 2, day
Mhm.
3, and I'm still feeling the
Yeah,
fear. I'm still
yeah.
feeling low, and now I'm starting to feel bad because as a travel partner, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just not the most fun.
Mm.
I'm just not the, person that I would
That you wanted to be.
traveling
Yeah.
with, right? And so
Mhm.
I was like towing this line and like trying to show up, but it was
Yeah.
like really energetically so draining
Mhm.
every day because it wasn't just being, it was like
Yeah.
really trying hard to be something that I wasn't in that
Feeling.
moment.
Mhm.
And I just kept thinking like, why do I feel so much fear?
Yeah.
And normally, so in all of my travels, something that I've learned is that fear will come up. That
Mhm.
fear will come up, at
Yeah.
least for me. And what the way that I've learned to deal with it is on my very first day in a new city, that fear always comes up, especially when I
For
solo
sure.
travel.
Oh, always. Mhm.
And I have a solid plan.
Mhm.
I say, all right, go on Google Maps,
Yeah.
locate the nearest coffee shop, bring yourself to the coffee shop,
Mhm.
bring a book, bring a
Yeah.
notebook, wear comfortable shoes, bring your camera, like as if you're going out for the day. But all you have to commit to doing is getting a cup of coffee
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
coffee shop. From there, you
That's great.
assess. Is it safe?
Yeah.
Is there something I should be afraid of here?
Right.
Or am I just letting my fears get in the way?
Of the unknown, of being in a new city, a new
Yeah.
country is always scary. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you
Mhm.
are. There's, especially as a solo traveler or like
Yes.
solo women travelers, you have that fear. But
Mhm.
I think that's a really amazing thing to do and grounding thing to do is go to a local coffee shop or the local whatever it is in that place
Yeah.
and speak to the people. They're going to
Yes.
set your mind at ease, or you're going to learn that, okay, maybe I should go home.
Exactly.
But
And I always
that was
have
not the
that.
case.
I always have
Mhm.
that, like, okay, if it's not safe, if something is founded in this fear, I just go back to the hotel room.
Yeah,
Like, or the
exactly.
Airbnb, whatever it is.
Totally.
So that's always my plan. But what was interesting about our experience
Mm.
is that we didn't really have that ability.
Yes, we had to drive and
We had to drive. It was raining, and I could have, upon reflection, I could have said to you, Brie, I want to just go sit in a coffee shop.
yeah.
But I didn't say that because I
Mhm.
felt like it was, we were traveling together. So part of it too, for me,
Yeah,
was learning to travel with somebody,
totally.
which I hadn't done in
Yeah.
a while. So yeah, that fear sat with me. So did you notice that in the first few days? How did you
Yes.
notice that? Because I know you did.
I definitely noticed the fear. I think obviously you're a very bubbly person.
Yes.
I know that you're not always that way. No one is always that way, and thank God, because that would be freaking annoying. But I could tell that there was hesitancy, and
Yes.
I feel like I pick up on that with people, especially people I'm close with.
Yeah.
And I, I was trying to allow you space to feel that way and not
Yes.
pressure you to
Mhm.
feel like you had to be some shining, like bouncing ball of light, because I don't always feel that way. And I like when people show up as they are,
Right.
and as they feel.
Right.
So I felt
Which is like
that.
part of why you're such a gem of a human, like so empathetic. So you feel so much, you give people their
Thank you.
space. You really are just so wonderful. So I was just so grateful
Likewise.
for you the
Yeah.
whole trip for all those reasons.
Well, likewise. I mean, I think you were really communicative about how you were feeling, even if I don't know if, how you felt about that,
Hmm.
but to me, I could tell that you were giving me those signals, and we took our time when we needed it alone to kind of regroup.
Yeah.
And we made a plan, and we were able to go out and kind of get things done and see parts of the town, the village,
See
the
the
little,
rain in the
see the rain
village.
and the dirt. And yeah, so I did feel that from you, but I think we sort of overcame it by both being really perceptive to the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really, I love that. And I think when you're traveling with people, it's so easy to get in our heads and like create
Hmm.
this experience that is negative if
Yeah,
something's going wrong. When really, if you just communicate it, like the other person's likely feeling something too.
yeah, of
It might be
course.
something totally different, but
Hmm.
there's always emotions on a trip. And
Absolutely.
like the more you
Hmm.
can address them, the better. So let's talk a little bit about the healing session.
Yes, yes,
So
please.
when I committed to going to Costa Rica
Hmm.
in 1 week's time, I had 3 or 4 people that I was meeting with already for unrelated reasons tell me how much they love Nosara, and
Yeah,
they connected me with people down there.
likewise. And yeah, in Guatemala, a
Yeah.
woman I met there on my trip was like, "It's so healing. It's energetically gonna bring you a lot. There's a
Yes.
lot of beautiful things in Nosara." So we both had people telling us that it was an amazing place to be.
Yeah, and that I think that healing energy is really interesting because when there's a lot of I think people are starting to go on more retreats
Mm,
as their
hmm.
vacation and you can retreat anywhere. You can create that experience
For
anywhere, right?
yourself. Hmm.
And it's much deeper when you're in a location that is just I guess steeped in that energy
Hmm.
of connection, of spirit,
Yeah,
of healing energy. And it could be as simple as the fact that many other people go there for that same reason. It
yeah.
creates that vibe. So,
Like
um,
a pilgrimage someplace.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. So I had been connected to a woman who I really love in one of my divine feminine communities here in New York had suggested meeting with her healer. She said, she's actually my best friend. She said, we
Mm,
were friends when we were New Yorkers 30 years ago, and we now both do healing
yeah,
in similar ways, but different places. And
that's amazing.
Pascal happened to be down in Costa Rica
Hmm.
and Nosara. So I booked a session with her. We considered both going.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, and I really want to honor that this was I do a lot of energy healing work.
Yes.
It's part of my routine, part of my life.
Part of your life. Yeah.
But it would have been your first,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And was it on your birthday that we planned or the day
I'm
before?
trying to remember. I think it was, maybe it was
Well,
on
it
my
was
birthday.
around your
It was either
birthday,
that day or the next.
right? And so I just want to honor that you said no.
Yeah.
You said maybe, right? And
Yeah.
then you were like, you know what, it's a no for me.
Hmm.
And I think that's really important for the healing journey, the spiritual journey. When you're ready, you will know.
Yeah.
When you feel called to something, explore it because that means you're ready for it.
Hmm.
And if you don't even like worry about it. It's
Yeah.
just not for you right now.
Totally.
And so I loved that you were super clear. You were like, yeah, that's a no. I'm going to
Hmm.
do, and I think you went
I
to
did
just yoga.
yoga, sunset yoga, which for me was the energy healing, if you
Yeah.
will, that I
Yes.
needed at that time. So
Which ironically,
yeah,
there was no sunset
there
because
was no sunset
it was
because it was
raining.
rainy, but it was still a beautiful view,
Yes.
actually, I will say.
Yes. And that was a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
So I remember dropping you off for the
Yes.
yoga before going to my session. And we turned into the spot and something hit me. My
Hmm.
mom's energy hit me. And it
Yeah.
just said, I said to you, said, my mom would hate this trip.
Yes, you did say that.
And as
Hmm.
I was saying, I was like, that's a weird thing to say. I was like, why am I? Um, and that was
Yeah,
just, it just
it
top of
connected
mind.
to you.
It connected.
Yeah.
So I dropped you off. I went to see my healer, and
Hmm.
she had this beautiful property up in, so here I am again driving. First of all, I just want to say, I didn't want to drive on this trip. I think I suggested we get a driver, and you're like, yeah, we're going to want a car. And like,
Yeah.
yes, very glad we had the car.
Very glad. We needed it.
But again,
Yeah.
signing up for like a relaxing surf yoga retreat versus drive yourself through the jungle every day.
In a 4x4.
Serenity
Yes.
now.
I will also acknowledge that you drove the whole time. So
The whole time.
there was a reason for that as well. I don't know why.
Oh, we're
but
going to
we'll talk
unpack
about
that.
it.
I'm excited that we're going to unpack that. Okay. So
Just
I do
noticed
this
it.
session
Mhm.
and I'm like, when someone comes recommended to me and it's someone I trust, like I place full trust in that
Yeah.
person, right? Like
Mhm.
not stupid trust, but
No, of
I'm
course.
very open. And I think when you do an energy healing, you'll hear people say like, oh, that person was closed off, so it's not going to work
Yeah.
on them, right?
Mhm.
And or that person's very open, and so it's very deep healing. And an energy session is very much you know it's a relationship between the two people that's
Yeah.
happening. It's
Mhm.
not like you go get your hair done and you just sit there and next thing you know you have new hair. It's like
Mhm.
you are in this as well.
Yeah. It's a
um
conversation of
it's a
energy.
conversation, and so I was very open, and I say that because everyone's healing will be different. Every
Mhm.
healing um, session, journey, experience will be different. But I didn't know what type of energy
Yeah.
healing it was going to be. So I remember you asking me, and I was like, I, d- I
I
don't
don't
even
know.
know. We'll
Yeah.
follow, afterwards. Um, Long story short, it ends up being about a 3-hour
Yeah.
session in the jungle in this beautiful, like canopy
Mhm.
that this woman had where she practiced with her patients or her clients. And it was really transformative. And
Mm.
we went up there, and a lot of times with healers, you'll do the talking at the end. But what
Yeah.
I really liked is we did the talking in the beginning.
That's nice to set the stage a little bit of what's
Yes,
gonna happen.
yes, and for her to hear like what is on my heart, what's
Mhm.
on my mind, and very quickly everything that came up was the fear that I had been feeling. And I
Mm.
told her, I said, "This isn't me.
Yeah.
Like I feel all this fear. I feel this anxiety. I haven't been like this on a trip in a long
Yeah.
time. It doesn't. It's not me. It's not me." And she stopped me and she said, "You've said it's not me
Mm.
many times, so you're carrying other people's energy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna clear that.
Mhm.
We're gonna clear that." And so we did, and it was one of the most, I'd say, impactful healing
Mm.
sessions that I've done. And it was a practice in releasing the emotions from the body.
Mm.
And some of those emotions were mine.
Yeah.
Some of those were indistinguishable between whose they were mine.
Mhm.
But also some of them were very clearly the fear from my mother,
Yeah.
which has been a big theme for me in
Yeah.
my life. And um, it was really incredible to have this physical release. Very much it was from the hips, which we
Mm.
hold a lot of fear.
Yeah.
We hold a lot of trauma in our hips.
Mm.
For me, it was fear. And I had this release. And at the end of the session, I just felt so light.
Yeah.
I remember I got up and I
Yeah.
was like, I have a new body
Floating. Yeah.
floating.
Incredible.
And it was it was hard because you go through this and like, you're sitting in the
Yeah.
jungle in this woman's house I've never met
Right.
before. And now it's dark, so now it's like dark
Full
outside.
trust. Yeah.
Full trust. And I'm going through this, and she practices a number of different healing modalities, but she's trained in Ayurveda
Mhm.
practices and ancient Chinese
Yeah.
medicine. So a lot of like deep physical massage to
Right.
release the emotions that we're holding
Mhm.
on to. And yeah, I mean, she helped me release. I had these pains in my
Mm.
body actually
Yeah.
before even arriving,
Okay.
but I just never even connected to this
Mm.
situation. But yeah, it was very much about releasing that fear and letting go of what wasn't mine.
Mhm.
And that's been a theme for me. I mean, my whole life. I just want to say I absolutely love my mother. So much
I
love
love
for
your
her.
mother.
She's incredible. She's an
She is.
incredible woman,
Yes.
an incredible mother.
Mhm.
So much love for her children, so
Absolutely.
much dedication. She's done an incredible job of creating this beautiful family for us and so many wonderful
Yeah.
things. And she had a lot of fear,
Mhm.
a lot of fear. And that was always something that in my life I've been trying to prove that you don't need to
Mm.
have the fear to live.
I relate to that.
Yes, our
Mhm.
mothers are sisters.
Yes.
Um,
For sure.
I
Yeah.
remember being a little girl in the ocean and
Mhm.
playing, not far in,
Yeah.
but playing in the water. My mom was afraid of the water.
Yeah.
So she would stand there and scream, "Come back,
Yeah.
Michelle," right? And like, kudos to her. She raised 4 children that love the water.
Yeah. Your brother, my cousin, is a surfer. So
Both my
yeah.
sisters are swimmers, love
Right.
the water.
Mhm.
And so she raised us to not be afraid. But I still like held on to a lot of her
Sure.
fear, right? Because we're products of our environments. And if you hear this,
Absolutely.
here's a funny story.
Yeah.
I was sailing with my friends here in the East River,
Yeah.
whatever, in New York. And one of my friends was going on a trip, and I like said to her at the end, I was like, "Oh, like be safe, be careful."
Yeah.
And she looked at me, she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, that's just like what we say in my family."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Okay, this explains a lot about like how you live." And
Oh, yes.
so coming back to the healing session, so for me, it was very much like a release of these emotions, and I just felt so light. So
Yeah.
I remember coming back to pick you up afterwards.
You were like a new person, like truly. Yeah.
I was like, "Hi."
Yeah, literally, I can see the hair flip because that is the hair was down. If it wasn't down, it was metaphorically down.
The hair was metaphorically down.
And you were just so much lighter and brighter, and you had that sort of sparkle in your eye that we know Michelle always does.
Yes.
So it definitely did something to you to like release and
Yes.
expel whatever negative energy you were kind of holding onto.
Yeah, it really did. It just, and I was so grateful for that session. I've worked with her, Pascal the healer, a few times since on some breath work and some
Yeah.
integration work, because whenever we go through that type of release, we're really stepping into a new version
Yeah.
of ourselves, and that doesn't happen overnight. And so that, and I'd love to share more about this if anyone's interested at any point, but we'll
Yeah.
leave it at that for now. Anything else on the energy healing or the session that you want to reflect on?
I just remember I'm reflecting on you kind of talking about it there after the session and how impactful it was. And you actually had to sit with it, as I'm sure energy and experiences like that are very, can be taxing and or like hard to kind of really synthesize that information. So you took some time to do that. And then we were able to kind of talk about it. You were able to talk about it with me a bit after that.
Yeah.
But I was really, I feel like the energy of the trip changed a little bit after that. I think the circumstances were still the same in terms of like it was challenging the environment, but our perspective and I think your perspective on things changed. And I was able to, I think we just both were able to kind of enjoy each other's company a bit more and just like make light of all of it.
Yes, yes, yes. And that was a big lesson from that session with Pascal. Was very much, she was challenging me to sink into the rain and to allow for us to experience what Costa Rica was asking us to experience, which was that, the water was all around us. And it was ironic because we were actually planning to go on a sailing trip that didn't pan out. And we got all the water. We got all the water. We just weren't on it. We were around it.
Exactly.
And under it. Yeah, in it. It was just a whole thing. So what I felt, going back to the idea of intuition, and if you remember, we were talking about making those choices, like go home or stay.
Yeah.
For me, what I was served by the universe was that really beautiful healing experience, which is something that I needed. And just to even go a layer, I guess one more thought here, a layer deeper on the healing. I shared with the healer that I do want to bring children into this world. I want to have a family. And she said, "Oh, well, we're doing this at the right time then, because I want you to clear this all out of your womb, clear it out of your sacral, get everything out before you bear children.
Yeah.
So that you're not passing that fear on." And I just thought, what a gift. What a gift to have that experience now.
Totally.
Had I gone home,
I would have been
okay. Everything would have been fine.
Of course.
But I wouldn't have had that opportunity. And so while we were faced with many challenges and lots of rain, lots of canceled reservations, lots of,
going with the
puddles,
flow.
going with the flow. Yeah. I was also given this beautiful opportunity to heal that, really that ancestral pain and fear that we hold on to.
Because the body definitely keeps the score, as they say.
Yes.
Kind of a well-known title now, but
it's a fantastic book. You haven't read it.
Yeah, and it really is true. And the mind gut connection, like it's all, the brain is a muscle. The brain is not just this like ethereal thing. The mind is actually, it's a muscle, and it's all connected to our bodies, and it very much we hold the pain and the trauma of our ancestors and our experiences. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's really, I think as I get older, I really see that and realize that, and am really actively working to connect those things and kind of massage them, and
Yeah.
yeah, just be more mindful of it,
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. And I think those chances that we get to kind of stop the cycle or break the cycle
Mm,
are like, they're gifts.
yeah.
They're gifts. And there's a lot of that happening right now. And so there's stories like this from a lot of people that are going through their healing journeys of, you know, when you stop the pattern,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but you're healing not just yourself, but your family and your ancestors on so many levels. And it's really
Yes.
the work that we're all being called to do in this time. So,
Yeah.
so it was a gift.
And I think it's especially special to have been on this trip with you, because you are my family.
I
And
know. I'm so
that
lucky.
but being able to really like unpack these things and have someone recognize the same
Mhm.
pains or um, tribulations, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, or haven't even like subconsciously have been dealing with,
Right.
and haven't been able to really vocalize it, was really amazing to be
Hmm.
able to do that. So that
Yeah.
was healing for me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Absolutely.
really glad to
Yeah.
hear it. I'm really glad to heal it. That was a perfect Freudian
That
slip.
was perfect.
And it is true. When you
It
heal
is
yourself, you
true.
heal others around you.
Yes.
So if you're going through that and it's challenging, just know that the work you're doing is really meaningful for everyone in your community.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick pause and
Yes.
we'll be right back.
Right back. Just
Okay, so we're back. We're back, part two. We're gonna rapid fire some funny stories,
Yes.
and we're gonna come back to the topic of fear. But before we do, I want Brianna to have a chance to share a little bit about your reflections from the trip and
Yeah.
where you are and how this trip kind of fits into your journey.
Totally. So this trip came at a really interesting time, difficult time, transformative time for me.
As they do.
Yeah. And so I recently went through a really big life change. I kind of got out of a really long term relationship that was very grounding and kind of, what's the word, defined my 20s,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
I turned 29 on this trip. So truly
Mhm.
the last year of my 20s. Of course, a lot of growth has happened over this decade. And it just, this moment for me, being a week in Guatemala with a group
Mhm.
of women photographers, that was really healing and incredible for me. And then coming to Costa Rica, I wanted it to be a really restorative trip. And it actually was, for me, in different ways. I
Yeah.
think we talked about our relationship and being able to really dive into our family
Yeah.
trauma, not
Yes.
traumas. I won't say traumas as
Hmm.
in a
Little
deep rooted
T's.
traumas, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Little T's, not big T's.
but just things that we deal with,
Yeah.
and that was really healing.
Hmm.
But I also felt like I had a lot of space, because it rained so much. We kind of had to make do with other
Yes.
forms of entertainment or whatever it was. So we did a lot of sitting and journaling
We did.
in beautiful
We did.
places.
Yeah.
And it was raining, which is kind of
Yeah.
cleansing in a
Yes.
way. There's beauty to that. We did a lot of like yoga, and we did a bar class, this exercise class
Mhm.
amongst the jungle on the morning of my birthday.
Yeah.
Um, we went to a couple coffee shops and sat and talked and held space for each other. And
Yeah.
we also had some solo time where you did some work and I
Yeah.
did some sitting and getting a
More
massage
journaling.
and more journaling, which for me, I used to journal a lot in high school and early
Mhm.
college, and I really kind of like got out of that practice. And I I have just gotten much back into it now, and this trip was kind of a catalyst for that,
Oh, that's
along
great.
with some other things that have happened serendipitously over the
Yeah.
past couple months. But that it really allowed me to go into myself and take care of myself
Yeah.
on a mental and physical level that I've neglected for a long time. So
Yeah.
this trip helped open the doors for me
Right.
to see that, so that's been really incredible.
I'm really, really happy to hear that
Yeah,
because I know we did set the intention that we wanted this to feel like a retreat,
retreat,
right? And
restorative. Hmm.
while it wasn't what we envisioned, it
Yeah.
certainly had those moments, like you're saying, where I remember the rain was like falling down, and we were sitting on that like big swing chair and
Yes.
just
Yeah.
journaling. That was like a beautiful moment, right?
Stunning.
And there were
Yeah.
a lot of those moments, and so. Well, a lot of the things we planned did not work out.
Hmm.
Like we had planned to drive to La Fortuna, and the
Yeah.
roads were not there. We had planned to go to dinner for your birthday. The restaurant canceled on us because of the roads.
The
We
lights shut off in the new place that we were at, but we still had fun.
right, like we ate your birthday dinner
Yeah.
in the rain, in the dark, on the beach, in the wind, and it was
Exactly.
hysterical. But and I'm glad to know that like you really did get those
Yeah.
moments that were can really change the trajectory of your next chapter.
Totally.
And I think, a lot of people ask, like, why do you travel so much? And I think one of the reasons is that it has this transformative quality of,
Yes.
taking these emotions that we may feel building up in our day to day
Hmm.
life and allowing us to transmute them into growth, into
Yeah.
wisdom, into change. And without that time to go deep, whether it's a retreat or just a
Hmm.
solo trip or whatever it may be, where you
Yeah.
find that time to reflect, it really can make a lasting impact
Totally.
for sure.
Mm.
For sure.
I think I said travel changes us, or I
Mhm.
think I did not coin that phrase, but I
You
did
heard it here
say,
first.
yeah, right. I think Anthony Bourdain there's like a longer quote with that,
Yes.
but he says travel changes you, and I think that's why we both travel. Of course,
Yes.
sometimes we want a beach vacation, but
Sure.
we ultimately love the journey and the experience and the adventure,
Yeah.
and we love going deep inside ourselves and kind
Yes.
of unearthing those challenges and unearthing kind of the strength that you hold deep inside, and
Yes.
travel brings that out of you, and
I
I
love
just love
that.
it.
I love the way you said it's like unearthing what's already
Yeah.
within you because that is really truly what's happening. And I think by having these dynamic
Hmm.
experiences that travel, you can have dynamic experience in many ways, but travel really um it like puts you on the fast lane to unearthing more and more of yourself. It's all in
Yeah.
there. We all have these, deeper versions of ourselves, the
Hmm.
lessons that we're meant to learn in this lifetime. They're all there for each and every one of us. But by having the breadth of
Yeah.
experience, you're kind of like I'm envisioning like at the airport, you're on the fast path. You're like
Mm.
on that like escalator thing that's
Yeah.
on the ground, the moving walkway.
Exactly.
And it's going fast. We're like, I
Totally.
feel like they don't even go that fast in airports
I
anymore.
know.
That's a whole
Yeah.
other topic.
Um,
Um,
it, just one last little thought
please.
before we move on. I've been thinking a lot about self-care as this
Hmm.
excavation, because self-care, I think, without any deep thought or kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Without any reflection,
Introspection.
yeah, without any introspection
Mhm.
is kind of moot. Like it's a moot point. It doesn't
False flag.
it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of surface level in a
Yeah.
way. And I think self-care, when you do things for your body, whether it's massage or yoga or energy healing or running in the cold, when you do things for your mind, with whether that's journaling or meditation, you are excavating parts of yourself that are already there. It's all within you, but you're kind of earthing them, seeing how they kind of piece together, and like
Mhm. Mhm.
creating a puzzle or a roadmap,
Yeah.
essentially putting together the puzzle of how to kind of move forward in your life. And
I
been
love
thinking a
that.
lot about that kind of idea
Yeah.
lately.
I think too, it helps us answer the question of who am I,
Yeah.
right? As you start excavating or
Hmm.
unearthing more of these pieces of yourself, you start to understand that question better,
Yeah.
right? And what's fun about that question is that I've never heard the right answer from anyone because we don't have it. We really don't
No.
have that answer,
Yeah. And
but
that's okay.
we learn more and more along the way.
Hmm.
And that is like a perfect segue
Yeah.
into the next theme I want to talk about, which is that um, challenging experiences help us grow,
Yeah.
right? And travel presents us with challenges,
Yes.
whether it's a delayed flight and, a response to that
Hmm.
delay, whether it's an adventurous, trip into the jungle where
Yeah.
you're, avoiding machetes,
Totally.
or whatever it may be, whether it's, a traditional challenge or just a logistical one.
Yeah.
Um, it really helps us grow and push the edges of what's possible within our lives. And I think that that is something that I felt a lot of on
Yeah.
this trip
Mhm.
specifically. I'm thinking about the day that we went to Venus Beach.
Yes. Yeah.
So this was another recommendation of a beach that someone said is just gorgeous, has a lot of divine feminine energy. It would be a great place to go and do some intention setting. It was about 45 minutes north
Yeah.
of where we were staying in Nosara. And since our other trip got canceled, um, and we were misguided by the lack of rain in the early morning
Yeah.
hours, we thought, why don't we go?
Let's try.
Let's drive, let's do it. And so um, we're driving along, and all of a sudden we come across the end of the road. But it's not quite the end because there's like a bridge that's under construction that you can't quite drive
Not
over yet.
impassable. Yeah.
And there's like a river.
Mhm.
There is a river, and the river is rushing.
A flowing river.
A flowing
Truly.
river.
Yes.
Probably about, what would you say?
Like 3 car lengths or something.
I was going to say 3, but it was more than that.
Yeah.
I think it was 10 car lengths.
Really?
Maybe 8.
I don't know.
7?
I feel like it was like 4.
4.
But I can be
You
wrong.
weren't driving.
That's true. No.
Okay, let's settle on 5.
Regardless.
Let's settle on 5.
It was
Can we
a-
agree to that?
Yes, we can agree. We can agree to 6 or 7.
We'll post the video with
Exactly.
the
We'll let the people
We'll
decide.
let the people decide.
It was a sizable river, like to
Yes.
potentially drive a car through.
Yeah, and so we're faced now with this decision, and we're watching other people make this decision of like, do I drive
On
or
the
not?
other side. Yeah.
The alternative, which we learned, was that, well, we would just turn back.
Yeah.
But had we, it was like a 5-hour drive if
Detour.
you couldn't get through
Yeah.
this river. So
that
we're
would-
watching
would've been
people
enough.
drive through, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just watching at this point. I don't know what we're gonna
Yeah,
do.
we're like, we can't. I mean, I was thinking like, we can't go through this
Yeah.
river. There's no way.
I figured our day was over.
Yeah, me too.
But then what happened?
Someone went through the river. Well,
Someone went through the river.
we watched someone traverse the river coming from the opposite side to
Right.
our side.
Right.
Um,
I think didn't somebody come up to our car and say, you got this, like you can do
yeah,
this?
so after the first person passed over, we were like, okay, so it's possible.
It's possible.
They're fine.
Uh-huh.
Their car was roughly the same size as ours.
Yeah.
And I believe the woman got out of that
Yes,
car
yes,
and
yeah.
came up to us and was
French
like,
woman.
yeah, she's like, you can do it. It's okay. Just keep driving and take your seatbelts off
Yes.
and roll your windows down in case you have to jump out.
Well, she said that because once we were like, yeah, you're
We're
right.
like,
You can do
okay,
this.
let's
We're
buckle
like-
in.
And she was like, no, don't put the seatbelt on.
We were like,
So-
oh, right.
Yeah. Okay. So seatbelts off, windows down. And she said, what'd she say? Don't stop driving.
Don't
right?
stop.
Don't
We're
stop
like,
driving.
we will not. Don't worry.
I was like, oh my God. Okay. So we are at the edge, and you basically drive down, and then you're in the river, and then hopefully you make it across and drive
so
up.
you go up.
And so we're driving down, and I am like white knuckling this steering wheel, and I'm like, Bree, like, just breathe. And all I remember from this time fording the river is hearing Bree go, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You got this.
Going,
You got
don't
this.
stop.
It was the keep going, don't stop that got me, because I was like, I am
I'm
not stopping.
I just needed to reinforce that we shouldn't stop.
And we made it, and
We
we
made
made it out, and it was like this euphoric like celebration.
We were like hysterical laughing. We were like screaming.
Oh,
it
felt
was
so good.
A release.
And this was the day after, or 2 days after, the healing session.
Yes.
So I was vibing.
You
I
were
was
ready
Like, we had
to take on the challenge.
We were ready for the challenge. We had like cute earrings on. We had great bathing suits.
Yes.
We were like ready. We were just doing like a photo. We were ready to have a good
ready to
time.
go.
Made it through, and immediately I thought, holy
Wow.
hell, we have to get
We
back.
have to get back. And we knew the rain was probably coming. Like it wasn't raining at that time,
Yeah.
but the rain was never far away. So
The rain is never far away. So long story short on
Yeah.
this one, we have a beautiful time at
Yes.
the beach. We make it there. We set some intentions. We created our word of 2025,
yes, yeah.
which we can share at another time. And something hit me, and when it was pouring on the beach, but for the first time, for me at least,
Yeah.
I was able to embrace the rain,
Yeah,
flow with the rain, love the rain,
Totally.
love the rain. And then I was like, it's time to go.
yeah.
Something hit me. I was like, we have to go.
We have to go back.
because I thought I had looked up the tides. I thought, but I don't know really what I'm doing in that area, right?
Yeah, of course.
Is it a tidal river? I don't even know. So I'm like, let's go.
Let's go.
So we drive back, and on the way back, the water had gotten higher.
Higher, because it was pouring. It was actually downpouring.
It was pouring. We made it. We made it across. We're here.
Here we are.
You can see we survived.
Yes.
But what happened on the way back was we actually ended up helping other people.
Yes,
so there
we
was
did.
A family who had 2 cars in front of us, and they were hesitating. So I
Yeah.
thought, all right, let me get out and let them know, like, we did this an
Just
hour
before.
ago,
Mhm.
and we're going back. What is it? What is that phrase? Like, hell or high water can't stop me. Like,
Yes.
literally, we were not stoppable that day. We were
not.
going across. And so I realized they didn't speak. I thought I asked if they spoke
Yeah.
Spanish, because they were speaking in Spanish, and I'm not good in Spanish. And but the woman said English, so I start talking to her in English, and then she starts talking to her husband in Italian, and I was like, oh, I can muddle along in Italian.
Yeah.
So we talk in Italian for a minute about what you have to do to get across. I pass on the seatbelt.
Yeah.
Like, no seatbelts, people,
seatbelts.
in case you have to swim out of your car.
Go.
And so we ended up going before them. So I showed them the way. There was like a particular way that all the cars are going, which I don't even know if that were the right way, but
there's no other way.
It was like the fear of the unknown.
Totally. Oh my God.
I am scared just thinking about this. Like,
it was scarier going back because of obviously the water had risen, and
the water was probably about 5 inches below the windows.
The window. Yeah.
If they weren't moving.
At the deepest point.
If it weren't moving, but we were bouncing, and so there were waves. And so we're going through, and at one point I see water come in and splash Brianna in the face. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to kill my cousin.
No, it was all good.
And then I was keeping my foot on the gas in a very steady way.
Yeah.
And at one point the pedal pushed my foot off, and we went sideways. I didn't acknowledge it. I wouldn't acknowledge it.
I felt it. Yeah.
And then we started going forward again, and we were like, did you feel that? Okay, just keep going. Just keep going. And we made it through, and we waited also for our Italian friends to make it. And it was, again, very euphoric. But so we forded our first river.
Yes. How did that feel? It felt good. I mean, afterwards it felt good to have gone through such an adventurous moment and have overcome it on our own and made the decision. And I don't know, it's one of those stories that you just keep with you and tell your grandchildren one day.
We will definitely be telling our grandchildren. And we'll be like, here's a Zoom from 2000 whatever the hell year it is.
Put it in the memoir.
They'll be like, what is Zoom? Yeah, it's definitely going in the memoir. And here's why. Because we expanded, and we said this on that day.
Yes.
We said we just expanded what's the realm of what's possible.
Totally.
We faced fears. We took on hard challenges. And we were talking about how when you do these things, when you do hard things in your life, whether it's on vacation, whether it's in a hobby, whether it's just outside of work, right? You are actually pushing the edges of what you can tolerate in terms of challenges, hardships, mental challenges,
communication,
everything. You're pushing those edges out, so you're getting stronger because life doesn't get easier, you get stronger. And so by putting ourselves in these situations, I knew we were already going to be able to handle more when we got back to our day-to-day life.
The more experiences you have, the more well-equipped you are to handle other life experiences or challenges that face you. Even if it doesn't feel connected, it's like you're equipped with different tools.
You're equipped.
It's important.
We were equipped. And so fast forward to Thanksgiving. It was probably 2 weeks after this trip. I was driving home for Thanksgiving, and I had one of my proudest moments. I got a flat tire on literally before I started driving, it was flat. And I made it all the way from Brooklyn to New Jersey because I was like, well, I can deal with this.
Yeah.
I forded a river 2 weeks ago. Of course I can deal with a flat
I know
tire.
how to make this
You know,
work.
like I called the
Yeah.
tire place. I brought it for air along the way. I got my tire fixed by, the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I just was like, this is it.
It's not that difficult.
This is why I forded
Yeah.
the river, so that I can handle these things with smiles, with, and I remember I called my sister when I was driving home and I was like, hey, like, I just like someone to know that I'm driving home with a flat tire in
Yeah.
case I need help along the way. And she was like, oh my God, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I was like, I'm good.
It's fine.
I'm good, actually, because I forded a river 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
So this is light work.
This is quite simple.
This
Yeah.
is light work.
This is light work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do. So I guess the question to leave everyone with to reflect on is like, where are you challenging yourself? What hobbies do you have that are either, and I talked about this on another podcast about how we need to have hobbies that are risky so that we're working on our risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Right. This is a great example of like working on our hardship tolerance,
Yeah.
our challenge tolerance. Where are you bringing those opportunities for you to grow into your life? So that we can build more resilience.
Yeah.
I think resilience is really what this comes down to.
Totally.
So, all right, Brie, let's wrap this up. We have to wrap it up with the story of our last night together.
Yes.
Tell the people what were our plans for our last night.
So our plans was to drive up a mountain to an amazing restaurant that came well recommended.
Yeah.
And have a lovely dinner on this mountaintop.
And it was a redemption dinner.
It was a redemption dinner. For what? For was it for my birthday?
It was your birthday dinner. So we had planned to go here for your birthday. The flooding, because of the flooding, they canceled on us.
Yes.
And now we were able to go. So
yes.
Okay, so last night. My nervous system was shot at this point.
I know.
I was tired. I didn't want to drive anymore.
Yeah.
We had to drive 5 hours the next morning. But I'm excited too. I was also excited because we got all dressed up. It's like cute.
We had music.
It's your birthday. We had music in the car.
Yeah.
Brianna's amazing at music. She made me a whole playlist called The Miseducation of Mimi.
Yes.
To introduce me to some great artists. Anyway, so we're driving up this mountain. And I actually love it because I talk with two of my girlfriends that are my neighbors and also business owners. We talk about how we're, a lot of people always say like we're in a spiral, right? We're in a downward spiral.
Yeah.
No, I only spiral upwards. And I say to them, we're helping each other spiral up.
Yeah.
So I love having this idea of like a spiral can go up as well.
Yeah.
We spiraled up that mountain.
Yes, we did. Literally.
And at one point, it's dark.
It's pitch black.
Pitch black.
No lights.
Thin roads. Cliff. And the pitch was really steep.
Very steep. Yeah.
And I start feeling the first signs of seasickness.
Yeah.
As the driver. And for me, it always starts with like a numbness in my feet.
Okay.
A numbness in my feet. And so I started feeling that. And then by the time you realize what's happening, it's almost like too late.
Yeah.
You can't stop it.
It's oncoming.
And I just stop the car. I start crying.
Yeah.
This is the crying in the car. This was the actual crying. There were tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not okay. Like, I can't do this. And I think you said like, well, you have to, because there's no way to. There was something that like, you spit some truth in a very kind way.
Okay.
But what I heard from you was like, oh, well, you have to. And I was like, she's right. Like, I can't K-turn on this teeny mountainside. Yeah. So up I go. And we got up there and we settled in, and you were, as always, an amazing emotional support travel buddy. And I felt like we had made it because I was excited to have a glass of wine. The wine came. Your Negroni came.
Yeah.
We had some appetizers out, and we were just like, it was this beautiful view, indoor outdoor restaurant.
The food was delicious. The waiter was super friendly.
The waiter was so nice. We were reminiscing on the trip. And then all of a sudden, okay, literally, I need you to hold this as if it's your Negroni. All of a sudden, a bat comes out of hell right here. Right, like out of here. And you literally swat it like that.
And
it was coming for your face.
It was, because I don't know that it didn't touch my face,
but
it was so close. Like, it was like here, and I just instinctively like went like this, and I felt like a scratch on my finger. And I was so shocked. Like I didn't even know what it was, or I had no clue. But I looked down and I had a paper cut. I mean,
It
so
was small.
minuscule. I liken it to a paper cut, just like on the top of my middle finger. There was maybe a drop of blood. Like it was very minuscule, but I did feel a scratch. Like it wasn't,
Yeah.
I felt the scratch.
Yeah.
And
the bat was gone.
it was gone.
It
Whatever
happened,
it was.
It was literally a bat out of hell.
Literally so quick.
So fast. And your instincts were so good. You didn't drop the drink. The drink
No,
was
the
solid.
drink was solid.
It was like in slow motion, it would look like this. But it happened within like milliseconds.
Yes, it was so crazy.
And I just sat there and I said to you, and again, like I'm physically am so drained at this point. Like there's no energy left. I couldn't even be emotive. I just said, you have to get the rabies shot now. Like deadpan.
Yeah. And I was like,
you have to get the rabies shot.
I didn't have actually a strong reaction at first.
No, you didn't.
Or really even that whole night until later in my bed.
Until you Googled it, which
like
but don't go there just yet. My
Yeah.
favorite was during dinner, Brianna was like, so do you think you're just overreacting, Michelle?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm appropriately reacting. Like when there is a potential, and I'll tell you why I know this. There's a potential that you could have been exposed to rabies. Like you just get the shot. There's no question asked because rabies takes 6 months to develop. At that point, it's too late to do anything. There's no medical treatment. You will die.
It's 100% fatal.
It's fatal. And so, modern medicine, we have a vaccine that you take if you've been exposed or potentially exposed.
Yeah.
And what is that process like, Brianna?
Well, it's a 4-course meal. What I mean by that is you need to get 4 different shots within like 2 weeks of each other. So it's every week you go back for the next shot. The first shot starting at the ER, it must be administered at the ER because they have the human form of the virus and only the ER can administer that. So what? Yeah.
A 4-course meal that starts in the ER. So I knew that this was the protocol, which is why I thought I don't need to overreact. I don't need to sugarcoat, but I do need to give her the facts.
Yeah.
That was like kind of how my brain was working in that moment. Totally. I was like out of empathy. I really was.
No, but there's empathy in that.
There's empathy in knowing like, well, I don't want her to die and here's what she's going to do. And I knew that you would come to terms with it.
Of course.
I knew that you would, because as soon as you hit Google, you're like, oh shoot, I need to get this shot. But here's why I know this.
Yeah.
Growing up, my mom had a really big fear. I already mentioned her fear of the water, but her biggest fear was actually that of bats.
The bats.
That bat was a symbol. I really believe it was connected to this whole clearing that we did of that fear that wasn't mine. And the fact that the trip ended with the bat was just so crazy.
So such a symbol.
Such a symbol.
Yeah.
It's such a symbol. Okay. So we were just talking about the bat. So that bat, and what I learned after, and I don't even know if we've talked about this, but the symbolism of the bat is that it represents rebirth. It represents rebirth, and with that, there's death of an old part of your personality, an old part of your way of being, your habits, your beliefs, and rebirth. And so that's really what I think this trip was. It was us both, moving forward, leaving behind parts of us that weren't ours or parts of our story that are no longer, and stepping into this new chapter. And so, yes, you had a 4-course meal. That was unpleasant. But I do think that it was like this broader story that the universe was like nodding to us saying like, hey, you've crossed the threshold.
Totally.
You passed the test. You have achieved what you came here to achieve. Now you can go home, your shots, and move on.
Yeah.
So it was quite the experience.
Quite the experience.
Yeah.
I think in that moment too, I have a healthy dose of realism always in me. And I think I wasn't connecting to any emotional part. Like I wasn't freaking out in the fear of this because I knew that there was really nothing I could do until I got home.
Yeah.
Of course, a little bit of that anxiety came in once you start researching anything medical.
Right.
It's
like, don't let them do
always
anything.
scary. And my flight the next day was actually a red eye. So I had to spend like 10 hours in the airport. And it was just
where I left you.
if you left me and it was totally okay. Honestly, I needed space. Not from you, but I just needed the time was good for me to like decompress, call the health insurance people, do all the things and just basically game plan for how I would get the first shot at the ER first thing.
Right.
And I did that. I took an Uber from JFK directly to Mount Sinai on Kings Highway. Shout out. And honestly, it was hilarious. I rolled up with all my bags. I was actually very calm. I slept on the flight, which I never sleep on flights because I don't love flying, but it's fine.
Such is life.
Yeah. Rolled up. It was a beautiful, honestly, the sun was shining, which
the first time we saw the sun was back in New York.
It was honestly a gorgeous day, kind of like today,
gorgeous,
cold, but beautiful. Rolled up and had all my suitcases. The security guy was like laughing at me because you have to go through security into the ER.
Yeah.
There was nobody there. My big fear was that it would be a huge wait and that the ER is always like a pain to deal with. And it was totally fine. The women who like checked me in were super nice and the doctors were laughing about my story. All the nurses were like, what happened with the bat? So it became this kind of
like, well, I went through like a rebirthing
comedy. Yeah, it was hilarious.
It's amazing.
So I got the shots. I'm also scared of shots.
Oh my God, that's right.
I had to get 3, one here, one in my butt, for tetanus as well. God. And over the course of getting these rabies shots, I eventually went back for 3 more doses at a city MD. I honestly got over my fear of getting shots.
Oh my God.
And this is like a weird silver lining of this entire experience. And so that was that.
I love it.
And
I love that.
I'm totally fine. And again, it's just another one of those stories and experiences that you take with you and you learn how to deal with in your life.
Yeah. And
I'm good.
You're good. And thank God.
Yeah.
And that was obviously, we talked a lot about different angles of this story, but of course there was always that concern for your well-being and making sure that you were safe and fine. And it was definitely a relief when you got home and there was certainly a low risk, right? Like it was a small cut, but we didn't want to take any chances. So but yeah, I think, I talk a lot about facing our fears to grow and the silver lining. You can now get shots without being scared.
I actually got my second ear piercing. Finally, I wear earrings like I wear like my skin.
Wait, well, what a treat.
Yeah. So, who knows what's next.
What a treat. Well, so that, my friends, is a little bit about our Costa Rica experience. Costa Rica in a nutshell. And with every experience, I always say like every experience is a once in a lifetime experience because never will you have the same set of circumstances in the same place with the same people and the same version of you that is there, right? If we go back to Costa Rica, well, that version of us died. We're back. We're new. We're refreshed. It's going to be new for us as well. So I am so grateful for the experience that we had, the challenges that we faced, the growth that we both experienced.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for you as a travel partner. I would travel with you anywhere after that. And I don't travel with many people. I know some of my friends are probably like, yeah, I know. All right. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being so open to having this conversation.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes. This was wonderful.
This was something. This was maybe our first podcast episode, maybe a one-off video sharing this story. But thank you for listening or watching. And I wish you all a marvelous day.